Welcome to Night Ultra. If you're new here, I'm your host, J Mac. If not, welcome back. Today we got some news fresh off the press. President Joe Biden has decided to step down from his 2025 election run. Who do you think influenced Joe Biden? Was it some of his Democratic constituents, or was it Joe himself? Stick around with me while we get to the bottom of this. Let's start June 27th. Debate between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump. We can say this is where things started to take a strange turn.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Okay. See, I hate to laugh at the man, but this is where things took a dark turn. When you're not even coherent with your speech and you're not able to address points and clearly debate your opponent, things are kind of questionable for you to run the country. And I think this is where the Democratic Party lost a lot of their confidence in Joe Biden. And unfortunately, I did. And anybody with common sense can see this man is not in the best condition to be running the country. But let's get into Trump and see his feedback.
We had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place.
This next clip, we have some additional highlights from the debate. This is getting into a little bit more of the back and forth between former President Trump and current President Joe Biden.
President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address
We got to step back and look at it for a minute. That's a genuine concern. You understand a president's term is 4 years. He's already having issues with being coherent and being able to establish dominance and respect amongst his peers. So what do you think is going to happen in another 4 years under these conditions or circumstances? We need somebody that's going to be able to go up and bat for the country in this dire state. And I'm not thinking Joe Biden is the person for the job.
Concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent.
Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them. both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests.
Well, you got to look at it, though, because Joe Biden has been in politics since 1972. He started at age 29. So as far as experience, he has far more experience and tenure in politics than Trump does. But it really comes down to who's going to make the best decisions for the country, not so much of what you've done in the past, is who's going to do the best for us right now in this given time and day. So
I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was.
I think this is serious because you got to look at it. Being a president's not an easy job. You have a lot to tend to. You're piled with stress, a tight schedule. You're constantly flying. At his old age, do you think realistically that's something he can maintain for the next 4 years? I don't know. I think we might be setting ourselves up for failure.
Years ago, I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them.
We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat
Come on now, man. Look it. I mean, let's yeah.
Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
He did do a damn thing. And
It's guaranteed Trump is going to throw a low blow in there. They're both throwing low blows, but I think like he's just his comedic approach. I don't know. He's just hilarious to me. I don't know. It's just his character, I guess. But
these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable.
I
And he
actually
wants
feel
to
bad
let
for
them all
Joe.
out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible.
Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And
no, actually, you should have to say that after what happened. So when they stormed the Capitol, that kind of takes away from your credibility of saying you shouldn't have to say that, because it's definitely in question because you didn't take the loss that well. And I think the ego is something that took a hit, and you weren't able to settle with that. So I think that was a legitimate question. So you can't
you
knock
would
her
see my
past it.
statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden. You would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places, enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't.
Okay. I think we see where this is headed. Back in 2008, August 22nd, Joe Biden was named Obama's running mate. Fast forward to 2024, Obama, the former president, is now questioning Joe Biden's candidacy. He thinks, should he be in the run for re-election, or should this be the moment that Joe Biden sits this one out?
We are hours away from the main event. Former President Donald Trump accepting the GOP nomination for the third time. Our Jay O'Brien joins me now. We are in the home stretch, Jay. But I do want to start with Democrats, if that's okay, because we've been talking about this Washington Post reporting former President Obama, rather, apparently privately expressing concerns to fellow Democrats about Biden's candidacy. What do you think?
Okay, if it was privately expressed, how did it make it to the media? So we all know most people in the Democratic Party were running amok because after that debate, we already knew Joe Biden was not in the condition to be running for president again. It was very clear and apparent.
I know I've asked you this a number of times as news develops, but is the dam really about to break now on Biden's campaign?
I think that's the interesting question here. So there have been, as we hear a mic check on the stage, by the way, there have been a couple of intervals where we thought maybe the dam had been patched up and then it had been kind of reopened, reignited. One of them was those comments Nancy Pelosi made on Morning Joe. Remember those where she kind of left the door open for Biden potentially not running again. And then just yesterday, Adam Schiff comes out, says that he doesn't believe Biden should run again. That also kind of reignites this tension in the party after we had thought maybe Biden had put it to rest a little bit. And now this reporting as it relates to not just former President Obama, who's a huge figure in the Democratic Party, but also we know from our Jonathan Karl's reporting, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, also expressing different variations of concern, if not outright doubt, that Biden could win in November in private conversations with Biden. That is what the Washington Post reports that President Obama has privately expressed to allies as well, that he doesn't believe that Biden has a very open path to victory come November. All of that to say, we've been talking about these, frontline Democrats, but also just these rank and file Democrats who privately believe that Biden can't win in November, who have maybe not publicly expressed him to leave the ticket. With all of these notables in the party, either reportedly or in some cases publicly, coming out and saying Biden should not be the candidate, it gives air cover for those rank and file Democrats to come out and for the floodgates to open. But even if the floodgates open, A, Biden will be the nominee unless he chooses to step aside, and B, the open question here is how big of an impact do these party notables have on Joe Biden? Remember, when all the speculation first started percolating, we were thinking, what does Nancy Pelosi think? What does Chuck Schumer think? What does Barack Obama think? These huge luminaries in the party, what do they think? And will they be able to move Joe Biden from that position?
Now, you see, that's where it lands us. If he doesn't have the support from his party, the backing necessary to get him across that line, they need to put somebody in position better suited to run this country. It was so bad, you can even see from this next clip the emotion and the confidence spilling out of Van Jones.
Commentator and a former Obama administration official. And Van, obviously, you and I were talking a lot about this dynamic and how this was ultimately going to play out when we were covering the Republican convention in Milwaukee last week. And with this news, this entire campaign has just upended itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of political stuff. The Democratic Party is a family. At the end of the day, this is a family matter. You know, Joe Biden's body may not be as strong as it used to be. His language skills may not be as sharp as they used to be. His heart is as big as ever. His heart is as big and as true and as strong. And this is the difference between a politician and a leader. He made a selfless decision, and people are heartbroken. Even people who are pushing for this to happen. It's kind of like when your grandpa, you got to take the keys, and everybody, you got to take his keys, you got to take his keys, you got to, and he's fighting, and he's fighting.
That's so cool. Hey, no, that's serious. Hey, if you don't take grandpa's keys, he might be driving through the grocery store, or he might be running through the salon or hitting pedestrians. So that's a great analogy. We need to take the keys from Joe because he is not in a position to drive this country.
And everybody's so frustrated. And then you finally get the keys back. And then you just cry. because this is somebody that you love. This is somebody that you care about. This is somebody who was there for you. This is somebody you wouldn't be here without him. And you have to take something from him. Now, this is not, look, this politics is politics, but this is a human moment for one of the great humans in America. This is a huge moment for him, for his family, for all of us who love him, for all of us who wanted him to get across the finish line. But if you're a young person watching this, this is leadership. This is patriotism. This is what it means to put the country first and put the party first and put the cause first. When your arm gets tired, you let somebody else finish pitching the game. That's what Joe Biden has done, and he's done that for all of us. And so I just want to say, I don't know who's going to be the VP, the non-VP. I don't know anything about politics. I just know that.
Man, you can really hear like the heartache and the pain in my man's voice. He is really disappointed that Joe Biden will not be running this next term coming up. But I mean, we got to be honest with ourselves. What we've just seen on display, do you or I think he is at any condition, shape, or form in a position to be able to? I don't think so. So I think he did what was best, and Joe Biden decided to step down for re-election.
Aside in this race was who exactly was going to step in. Mary Bruce, it seems like the president has an answer to that question on who he's endorsing here.
Rachel, the president, in a tweet just announcing that he is offering his full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of the party. I want to read this message from him. He says, "My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term." He says, "My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made." He says, "Today I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats," he says, "it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this." The president has always made clear, Rachel, that he believes that Kamala Harris has what it takes to be president. He wouldn't have chosen her to be vice president if he didn't. But we have seen sort of an interesting change in the way he's talked about Kamala Harris, even in the last 2 weeks. It was just 5 days ago, I think, he was out in Las Vegas doing a big event before the NAACP.
And then he also put out a tweet. I don't know if it was fake or not, but he just put out, "I'm sick." To me, that was like a telltale sign. It's like, all right, something's coming. And then fast forward, it brings us to where we are right here.
And he took on Trump, especially in the way that Trump has been reaching out to black voters. And he took on the way that Trump had once used the phrase, black jobs. And the president made this quip, this joke, not joke. He was fired back at Trump saying, "I know what a black job is. It is vice president." And he said, point blank, Kamala Harris could be president. And
I think they really know how to pull on the heartstrings, like I said. I mean, I would love to see a woman president for the first time, but I think ultimately it comes down to who's the best candidate, because we're in a situation where I think we're in dire times, and it's very vital we make a proper decision or put the right person in office. Otherwise, like they were saying in the debate, we could be looking at war, we could be looking at an economic collapse. I don't know, but I don't think we're in a position to be making a gamble.
He said it in a way that made all of our ears go up and made everyone listen closely, because it is clear that he likely was thinking about what would happen if we got to this point where he had finally decided, Joe Biden decided that he needed to step aside and step out of this race. And now he is throwing his full weight and support behind Kamala Harris. It sends a huge message, especially to this party, about where we are going now, especially with such little time left in this race.
Yes.
Well, you heard it here. The bomb has been dropped. Biden has officially dropped out of re-election, and he has endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think the rest of the Democratic Party will endorse her just like he did, or do you think we'll have issues moving forward? Hey, if you like my content, click on this next video right here where I go into some highlights from Trump's RNC speech. It's included timestamps to save you some time. I'm posting weekly videos and live streaming on Fridays. Thank you for tuning in tonight at Ultra. Love, peace. Until next time, we out.